Welcome to the Burrillville School Committee, regular meeting, March 8th, 2016, 6:30 p.m., Burrillville High School Media Center, 425 East Avenue, Harrisville, Rhode Island. Members present, all with the exception of Sylvia St. Pierre. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a couple of recognitions this evening. First, we have a recognition of Gennaro Ferraro, popular guy around campus. Mr. Ferraro, would you please just step up, please, so I can... Thank you. Most people know Mr. Ferraro is a head football coach, science teacher for 20 years, AP biology teacher for 11 years. He's also served on the executive board member for the Rhode Island Football Coaches Association. And part of his philosophy is coaching is the ultimate form of teaching, as you evaluate it every time you play. And we see that in his students that play on his teams. And his philosophy also is that athletics is also a means of unifying communities. And in Burrillville, the sports programs and certainly the job you do with our children, our football teams, certainly unifies the community. Teaching, coaching, and living in the same community with a rich athletic history is a blessing, and I agree. So, on behalf of this school committee and the school department, I'd like to present you with the 2015 National Federation of High School Sports Football Coach of the Year Award. Go Broncos. Next, we have another recognition, and I will turn to our committee member, Ms. Alex Leclerc, to
Can
present.
I have Coach Susan Burgess step forward, please?
I believe you know each other.
Coach Burgess's coaching information is quite impressive. To list just a few of her many accomplishments, she developed a youth field hockey program named Chicks with Sticks and runs many youth clinics and camps. She became the Burrillville High School head coach for the field hockey program in 2008. In 2013, her team were the Northern Division champions and the Division II state champions. In January of 2013, she was featured in the WYZA magazine She Shines as Woman of Achievement. And in February of 2014, she was selected as a 2013 State Coach of the Year for NFHS. On a personal note, Susan was my field hockey coach throughout high school, and she was the most passionate, hardworking, devoted, and caring coach that I've ever had the pleasure of playing for. So thank you for everything. So, on behalf of the Burrillville School Committee and the Burrillville School Department, I would like to present Susan Burgess with the 2013 National Federation of High School Sports Field Hockey Coach of the Year Award.
Before we move on for the minutes, I would like to add that Miss Sylvia St. Pierre is present. Next item, consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, but first the approval of minutes. I would like to approve the minutes of the February 9th, 2016 regular meeting with corrections. Even though I was here in spirit, but I showed up on the paperwork, so we have to correct that. And also to approve the February 9th, 2016 executive session meeting.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Also make a motion to approve warrants and invoices for the 2015-16 school warrant number 8 for the month of February, dated March 8th, 2016, for a grand total of $2,086,402.12.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And I'll just make a special note that the approval of minutes and warrants with corrections as amended. Next item, presentation by the public to the school committee. We have an audit report from Kay Akasha.
Good evening.
Hello.
Going to pass around. Thank you. I'm Donna Kasha, and I'm here tonight to talk about the audit results for the fiscal year that ended June 30, 15. So I know you're way into the middle of your 16 year and you're budgeting for your 17 year. So the results we're talking about now are June of 15. And I believe that everyone had received the big audited financial statement, as well as a 3-page communication. And we're going to cover, the good news is we're not going to cover this entire report page by page. But I do want to start right at the beginning after the table of contents. The audit opinion is as it's been in the past, which is unqualified or unmodified. That means that we believe the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We do discuss on the second page that for the first time, the school department implemented GASB 68. I'm going to talk about that a little bit, what the impact is on the school department, more so of an impact on the town. So right after that, if you have the report in front of you on page 4 and 5, these are the main operating funds of the town general fund, and then the other governmental funds are the grants. The general fund is really the fund that I believe you're probably the most interested in. And on page 5, the school department had more expenditures than revenues of about $84,000. And on a budget this size, we consider that to be break even. This is not comparing it to the budget. This is on, we call it the GAAP basis, the generally accepted accounting principles basis of accounting. On a budgetary basis, if we look in the back of the report, I see some of you have your reports here, so I'll just bring you to that page. Page 44. This compares the actual results to the budget. So on this basis of accounting, when we compare the budget to the actual results, the school had a surplus, more revenues and expenditures of $67,000. You can see that about 2/3 of the way down the page, $67,040. So shows tight controls over expenditures, which is what we would hope, what we would expect. The school department did appropriate $75,924 of its surplus, of its cumulative surplus, for the FY16 budget. So you may remember you did that when you adopted that budget. That was $75,000. Other funds that I know may be of interest are the lunch fund, the cafeteria fund. That had net income of $24,000, some more revenues and expenses of $24,000. And the rink also had a surplus for the year. That can be found on pages 6, 7, and 8. So the lunch fund brought in revenues of $464,000, plus federal and state money of about $471,000. The rink had a surplus even before the school department's budgeted transfer of $44,000. That's been an annual appropriation for quite a few years. And student activity funds, We don't want to forget those. If you look at the very last page of that big financial statement, page 52, during the course of that fiscal year, about $447,000 worth of money flowed through these funds. So this is everything from class trips to proms to every student activity you can think of at the elementary level as well. So not an insignificant amount of money. We want to make sure there are good controls over these funds, particularly because many of them are handled outside of the school administration building. They're handled in the schools. So here we like to see 2 signatures on every check, an invoice to support every disbursement. We really want good controls over these funds in particular. They're handled outside of Robin's domain. I knew she was here. So not handled by Robin, but handled, by principals, secretaries in the schools, and also parents. This is a big report, and I'm happy to address any questions that you have. Those are pretty much the highlights. I do want to talk about GASB 68. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board has said over the past period of time, so this isn't something brand new, but governmental accounting historically had not included a lot of the assets, and Mrs. Carden knows this, Mike Carmosi knows this, not a lot of the long-term assets and long-term liabilities. So for example, we went years before we were showing fixed assets on the books, the buildings that we're in, the equipment that you see in the room, the technology that you see in the room. We went years before they were included in a meaningful way in these financial statements. Same thing at the town level with long-term debt. So we didn't show the bonds and the leases and all the borrowing that municipalities do. That has changed over the years, and now we are including most of that information. Kind of the last holdout was the accrued pension liability. This is the year, so FY15 is the year that happened for the first time. Because this is considered a department of the town, that information does not flow through to the actual financial statement pages, but they are disclosed now in these financials that you have in front of you. And I'll point out where. The footnote, which used to be a couple of pages, now runs on for many, many pages, starting on page 19, 20, and goes for many pages, starting on page 20. The summarized information is a little easier to understand in the toward the back of the report, and that starts on page 38. The amount that the school department for ERS, so for the teachers' union pension, the school department's share of that actuarial accrued liability for the pension is on page 40, that $22,521,000. So for the first time, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board is saying that needs to be disclosed, that needs to be brought to people's attention. Now, the reality is the school department is funding what they're told to fund by the state. So you're amortizing that down by making payments. And the same thing with the teacher's survivor benefit, that's on page 42. The school department's share of that is $4 million. And that's actually an asset. We actually have more of an asset there than we have of a liability. And for the municipal employees, that amount is $416,000. So it's the teacher's pension that's really the bulk of the liability, the pension liability here. And we just bring that to your attention because it is new this year. It's the first time that we've included that. I'm happy to address or try to address any questions that you have on the big financial statement before we move on to the communication with governance. Okay. Anytime we issue audited financial statements, our accounting standards require that we also issue this communication with governance, and as the school committee, that's you sit as the people who get this report. So right on that first page, about halfway down, we do talk about adopting for the first time GASB 68. One of the things that we do during the audit is we look at accounting estimates, make sure that they're sound. And the most sensitive estimate here is the useful life of fixed assets. So most of the numbers here are within the financial statements. I don't want to say hard numbers, but they're not subject to a lot of judgment. How many years we depreciate assets over, there is some judgment that we use there. So we We look at what management has chosen for those lives, and we had no issues with that. We do talk about which financial statement footnotes are particularly sensitive. That's at the top of page 2. And it's really the disclosure of long-term liabilities in note 5, and then compensated absences in note 8. We didn't have any significant difficulties in dealing with management during the audit. If we did, we would address them here. The only financial statement adjustment that exceeded the materiality threshold. So when we start our audit, for each of the funds that we audit, the general fund, the grants, lunch fund, rink fund, student activity, we establish a materiality threshold at the beginning of the audit. And if there are audit adjustments that exceed that amount mathematically, we disclose it in this letter. The only thing that did was the Levy rink. There was a $28,000 adjustment there, which Robin has recorded in the financial books of the school department. If we had any disagreements with management, we would tell you about them. We didn't have any. We did request and receive a representation letter from management, same date as the audited financial statements, which was December 23rd. If we were aware that management consulted with other independent accountants, we would need to tell you that. That didn't happen. We had no communication with management prior to being selected as the auditors. And anytime we issue required supplementary information, we're just required to tell you that we don't audit it, but we do read it. We do make sure that it's consistent with other information in the report. And the supplementary information this year is that new GASB 68, starting in the back of the report, and the budget and actual comparison. That's the supplementary information. I talked fast, but I am happy to address any questions, concerns that you might have.
Can you tell us what the GASB, the GASB stands for?
Governmental Accounting Standards Board.
Thank you.
Mr. Allen?
Can you, you said that the 20, I think it was a $22 million liability for the pensions. You're suggesting that was a supplemental piece that you did not audit, so
Correct.
you're not sure about the validity of the number, but
Nope.
you're just,
So that information was provided by, and we actually went for training. Because it was so complex, and we deal with numbers all day, but this particular GASB was so complex that Dennis Hoyle, the Auditor General, held several sessions for auditors and also for finance people. So John Manville from the town also came to this session. It didn't really affect Robin because it wasn't included in the school department's financial statements in that way. So the information that's in that supplementary information was provided by the Auditor General. He did certain work, or his office did certain work around those numbers. So we didn't audit the numbers per se, but we took that information and included it in the school department and the town's financial statements. Right.
thank you.
For general knowledge, this is considered a forensic type audit,
Forensic means we're looking for fraud.
and there isn't.
And that wasn't this type of audit. So
That's it.
this type of audit is called a financial statement audit. So our end game is to accumulate enough evidence that we can issue an opinion. Forensic audit means from the get-go, we would be looking for something, some misappropriation of assets, and that's not what this was, but we certainly did not find that.
That's right. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Ms. Kasia? Hearing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good seeing everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion to accept? I will entertain a motion to accept the auditor's report as
So moved.
Second.
motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next item, Connections Survey by Kim Pristawa.
Hi, everyone.
Hello?
I have Kate Fleming here with me too. Introduce ourselves. So I'm Kim Bristow. I'm the Director of People Personnel Services currently. And Kate Fleming is here with me, and she's the reading specialist at Burrillville High School.
When the connection screening started, we were both together on the RTI problem-solving team. And I just want to let everyone know that the connection screening is part of the response to intervention process at Burrillville High School. So Kate is going to take over and talk a little bit about the background, and then I'll show you some data and how we use the data to help students.
So when we started in 2010 with a district-wide initiative to begin really looking at our RTI process, we realized that we had a reading and a math path, but we didn't have anything for behavior. So when we started this connection survey, it helped us to identify students who were really disengaged in school, not connecting with other students, not connecting with teachers, not passing classes. We realized that students who are really involved in school, involved in sports and after-school activities, involved in their classes, are likely to exceed what they're in their academics and also socially and behaviorally. You know, the kids that are in the sports and in the activities are really not the ones that are truly behavior issues. We also feel that adults being connected to the students and the students being connected to us, it really helps to make a great environment, as well as having teachers and students involved in activities together, and also just really having a positive environment for everybody involved. So what is our connection screening? So we use it as a universal social emotional screening at the high school, so that's 9 through 12. Every student is involved. We developed it through our RTI process in the fall of 2010. Kim Bristow was the kind of the brainchild behind everything, along with Allison D'Amato at the middle school. So we administer this survey in November, right after the first quarter ends, gives a freshman their first quarter to get used to the school, meet people, you know, get to know their teachers and their classes. What we do is we ask the kids a very simple question. Name 3 adults and 3 peers that you feel connected to in the school. So it could be a teacher, it could be an aide, it could be a janitor. Gary was on there a lot. It could be the lunch lady, the wrap lady. It could be anybody. And 3 peers in their class, in classes above them. And then there's also a box on the survey, which we'll show you in another slide, that says check if you feel like you have no connections for adult connections or peer connections. And then we fill out a survey as well, naming students that we feel connected to. And we have 6 lines. Some years are more difficult than others, and some years you want to fill the whole page. So we put down kids that we feel connected to. And then once all of the data is collected, we have it coded. And so none of the teachers' names are on there. When people are looking at the information, all they see are numbers. So every teacher has a number, and that's how we code it numerically. And then when we report the data to the school, we do it per class. So what the freshman class looked like, what the sophomore class looked like. And then the RTI team will look at it individually when we have our focus group of kids who reported no adult and no peer connections. So this is what the survey looks like. We have done it on paper for 5 years, and this year we just went to a digital version of it. So the kids, when they came into advisory, wrote down their names on a piece of paper, but then put it into the computer, and it just made collecting the data a lot easier. So as you can see, you have 3 lines there, very simple, 3 adults. Check the box if you feel you do not have any connections. Same with the peers underneath. And then this is our survey. So there are 6 lines, same directions, 6 students you feel like you have a connection to.
I also want to add that this started in conjunction with our PBIS push in the district as well. So this is really something that was focusing on positive interactions with teachers and students and really encouraging teachers to reach out, and not just teachers, all adults in the building. So I just want to show you a little bit of our data so you can see kind of what this has looked like. So in the fall 2010, we had about 77% of students reporting that they had one or more adult connections. And now in the fall of 2015, we have almost 95% of students reporting that they have one or more adult connections. I can tell you that part of this is because we've really put an emphasis on connecting with students. We talk to students about what a connection means. We're encouraging all adults in the building to reach out to students more. As we find students who might be at risk, we're reaching out to them more. So we're being really proactive, and we feel that that's part of the increase. We also did a better job over the 6 years of collecting the data, catching up with students who are absent. And we really have a very small percentage of students who refuse to take the survey. There's been a lot of buy-in. The teachers like the survey. They know it's useful. The students understand how we use the survey. So there's very little refusal of doing that survey, and it really only takes 5 minutes. It's not a lot of time during the day. It happens during advisory. So we do look at these 4 groups. We look at one or more adult connections, and then we look at students who reported no adult but some peer connections, and then our most at-risk group is the one that says 0 adult, 0 peer. So that would be the highest at-risk group that we would follow up with, the students who are saying they have no adult and no peer connections, because those are obviously probably the most isolated students. I also want to let you all know that some of the background on this came out because there's a lot of research that says, and I'm sure you've heard about it, if a student has one adult connection in their life, they're more likely to be successful, to be resilient through life's hardships. So that's kind of where this all started when I was thinking of it. The longitudinal data over the 6 years, really this just shows you again in a different way how the students have been reporting. Higher and higher percentages are reporting at least one adult connection at the high school from 2010 all the way to 2015. I do want to add that the middle school also does this survey. They started doing it the same way as we did around 2012. And they have very similar data, actually probably even more connections than we do. The students in the middle school have that team approach, so they tend to get connected pretty quickly to their team teachers. And this is just another way of looking at the data. I just wanted to show you the data is so rich. There's so much information. We've used it in so many different ways to help our students. This is just looking at one class, the class of 2014, over a period of 4 years, and how they're reporting more and more connections as the years go on, which is something I know that's intuitive, but I think it's nice to see, as freshmen coming in, some students don't have those connections, and we really build them through advisories and through classes, and just really encouraging it. We've also found, and you mentioned it, we found that students have really interesting connections, people that we didn't even know about, like the wrap lady here at the high school who makes the sandwiches. A lot of students name the wrap lady. They love her, and I've actually gone and met her, and she knows me now, but we chat a lot, and I watch her, and she's magical. She knows kids' names, she knows something about them, and she's making those sandwiches and saying something about each kid, and it's 1 minute every day that she talks to those kids, and they feel connected to her. So I use that as an example for teachers. It doesn't need to be an hour-long conversation. Sometimes it's just showing an interest in a kid, knowing their birthday, knowing something special about them that really makes the difference. I love sharing that story. This is the last piece of information I wanted to share is how we use the data. So we follow up individually at both the middle school and high school with all students who report no adult and no peer connections. And the way we do that is we try to identify someone either on the RTI problem-solving team who knows the student, but we also look at the adult survey. So remember we said all the adults take the survey too? So if an adult named Johnny Smith, that they're connected to Johnny Smith, but he said he didn't have any connections, we will ask that adult, can you follow up with that student? And we have a follow-up survey that's used with the student to ask them questions about whether they have connections outside of school. Is it a coach, a parent, a cousin? So we're really trying to see if they have any other connections and how they're doing, and if they need more referrals, or if they need to be some kind of an intervention in school because they're really feeling disconnected. We also alert advisors, guidance counselors of the students who reported no adult connections so that they might be able to make more of an effort for students. And I already have some anecdotal data from several different teachers that it's really helped, that they didn't know a student was disconnected. They just kind of were flying under the radar, didn't really enjoy school, and the advisor made an effort, and it has really made a difference. One student who graduated last year wrote a really, really nice card for her advisor and said, "I'm so happy that you reached out to me back in my freshman year, because I don't know that I would have stayed in high school, and you really made a difference." And that advisor had no idea that she was the reason why the student was more engaged in school, and it was because of this connection survey that effort was made. We do provide interventions as appropriate for students. We've created some social skills groups, some newcomers groups, because sometimes students who are new to the district are more disconnected. Individual counseling, we've also referred students to outside agencies, and at that point, is when parent involvement happens too, if we're really feeling that the student is highly at risk. And lastly, the data has helped us to assist when we're deciding to reach out to students. As I said, we know teachers that are more likely to reach out because they've named that student. And we've also used the data in tragic circumstances. If there's a student if there was a car accident, say, and a student's in the hospital, and it has happened, we've gone to their survey to see who they named as connections so that we can reach out to those people right away and be proactive and reach out to the teachers who named them to see how the teachers are doing as well. So it's been, the data's been great, it's been really useful, and I think it kind of speaks for itself that it's looking at a much more positive climate between students and teachers. And I know that you had asked to get more information that we presented maybe 2 years ago, and I know this is a different school committee, so I hope that was helpful. Lastly, I just want to mention that, because I mentioned it in my school committee report last month, the Connections project has kind of moved statewide and nationwide as well, so there's been a lot of recognition. I have, and Kate and I actually have presented at the state level. I've also presented at the national level, including a national webinar on the topic that is archived on a site where people can go to and review it. We also started a statewide project with Michelle Walton-Dopke through Northern Rhode Island Collaborative. She does consulting throughout the state on supporting schools in multi-tiered systems of support. And a lot of schools, several other schools are using the Connection Survey, and we provide them with some consultation and support to implement it in their school. There's also a school in Michigan that's using it too. So I continuously have schools reaching out asking to help with implementation in their school because they know it helps kids. And that's it. I just want to acknowledge everyone who's helped us. We've had many different people who have helped us throughout the project. Our problem-solving team, various people have come in and out. Dr. Plata has continued to support the project, which we really appreciate. And we've had help from 2 colleges who have assisted with implementation and with the data analysis as well. We're able to get URI students who help. We de-identify all the data, including student names, and they're able to look at the data globally and see percentages by class, and even looking at correlations between student report of connections and tardies and discipline and absences, and see if that's related. So it's been a really interesting project, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Great.
Anyone
Does
have any
anybody-
questions? You can always email me, give me a call if there's any questions.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for helping our students.
Next item be public comment. Would anybody care to speak in public this evening? Hearing none. Item 6, personnel, appointments, leaves of absence, retirements, resignations.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the appointment of Darlene Bailou, teacher assistant at Stair Farm Elementary at the current contractual rate.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to approve resignations with regret. The following resignations are from Ariana Stanton, boys and girls outdoor track assistant coach at Burrillville High School, effective immediately. David Flores, computer network technician, effective March 18th, 2016. And a resignation of Marsha Wheeler, head coach unified basketball at Burrillville High School.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Also making a motion to approve the appointments in athletics for Ryan Raffinelli, tennis coach at Burrillville High School, stipend of $2,170. Samantha Stanton, boys and girls outdoor track assistant coach at Burrillville High School, a stipend of $1,735 plus $100 longevity. Angela Kraus, girls lacrosse assistant coach at Burrillville High School, stipend of $1,735. And the rest will be volunteers. Sandra Schetz, boys, girls outdoor track assistant at Burrillville High School. David Prario, boys and girls outdoor track assistant, Burrillville High School. Brian Loins, baseball at Burrillville High School. Kelly Kaprasak, girls hockey, Burrillville High School. And Nicholas Harriman, girls hockey, Burrillville High School. Also, appointment to athletics would be Christopher Tody, assistant baseball coach at Burrillville High School, $1,735 stipend. Bruce Marchand, baseball coach at Burrillville Middle School, $1,300 stipend, pending the receipt of appropriate paperwork. Also, Courtney Lacey, head coach, unified basketball, Burrillville High School, stipend to be paid by the Special Olympics of Rhode Island.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Next item, old business, fiscal year 16 BSD budget update.
Motion to open?
Second.
Motion open in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes. Okay. Obtain a motion to receive and file or accept it presented. Which one?
Accept as presented.
Second?
A motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
FY 16 rink budget update.
Motion open?
Second.
Motion open in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion to accept as presented.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Superintendent's report. Item 1, park graduation rate update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to give the committee an update on the park assessment. Just historically, last year, we didn't press the issue about the movement that was against park. I decided not to do that. RIDE gave us very little direction in terms of exemptions and considerations for opt-out. So many communities did many different things. I decided not to push the issue last year and divide the community. However, this year, I felt obligated to at least provide as much information as we possibly could to parents so they were informed about the park assessment. So what I did personally was go out to every school and speak to every faculty and ask for their support when they spoke to parents and or students. We've also sent out several letters, and the school committee has also sent out a letter to parents and staff. The procedure which I informed the principals to implement was that if they received a request from a parent that they did not want their child to take the test, I asked the parent to meet with that particular family. If the principal felt that I could be of value in speaking to the parent to convince them to have their child take the standardized test, I asked the principals to refer those individual parents to me for a meeting, within reason. Obviously, I can't meet with 100 or 200 parents if that's the case, but I certainly will meet with a reasonable amount of parents. At that point, the the conversation will end with the parent. I'm certainly not going to send the parent down to RIDE. RIDE is certainly not going to interview thousands of parents if there are thousands of individual students that opt out. However, we are required to submit the paperwork for any student that chooses not to take the test. There are 3 legitimate considerations or exemptions. It's medical emergency, personal emergency, and family emergency. And there's a form that we have to fill out and submit. Those are basically the only 3 reasons that a student could opt out of the test. If a parent chooses still at that point not to present any documentation for any one of those reasons, they don't have to have the child take their test. We strongly have encouraged parents, and we strongly have encouraged teachers to encourage students and parents to participate in the test. It has nothing to do with promotion, has nothing to do with graduation, has nothing to do with teacher evaluation. All those things are off the table. It basically comes down to providing data to teachers so they can improve teaching and learning in terms of students meeting grade level expectations. And that's the information that we have sent out also to parents in writing. So that's an update on POC. Any questions on that? Okay. Graduation rate, congratulations to the high school. I sent you that information. In 2014, the graduation rate at the high school was approximately 75%. And in 2015, that went to 91%, which is an increase of 16%. And I attribute the increase to at least one of the programs that you just viewed. You saw where that 94, 95 percentile connection fit in. Well, that has a direct relationship to the graduation rate. So all these things that are taking place at the high school, these different programs have a direct relationship to the graduation rate. So we were one of 10 communities that met the 90 percentile graduation rate. So congratulations to everyone here at the high school for all their hard work and commitment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Pilata? Hearing none, we'll move on. Next item is Budget Board Capital Improvement Recommendation.
Oh, administrative.
I sent you a copy of the Budget Board recommendation. The request that we submitted to the Budget Board, they approved our request in the total amount of $399,888. The Budget Board had recommended in their report to us that to address the issues at the Eccleston Fieldhouse was to take the money out of our undesignated fund. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I wrote back to the town manager and also to the Budget Board asking them to find the $90,000 out of other infrastructure money and capital money. If you looked at the report, I believe on page 4 in the bottom paragraph, it says that once the municipal and school projects are allocated for $2,231,000 and $284,000 for engineering, $1.9 million for infrastructure projects to be determined by management remains available. So I suggested to the town that they take the $90,000 out of the remaining $1.9 million that they have to consider the repairs at the field house. We sent an itemized list to the town manager per his request based on what needed to be done and corrected at the field house. So they have all that information at this point. The Budget Board was good to us with our capital request.
You did a good job.
Questions?
You did a good job.
Thank you, Dr. Pilata.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on capital improvement?
Can I ask one question? The field house is not connected to the Board of Administration, is that right?
probably those of you that have been around a lot longer than me might have a better answer, but the field itself is under the direction of the Board of Administration.
Mhm.
But the interpretation that we got was that we were to maintain the field. I'm not sure the history of the Eccleston Fieldhouse, who built it and who we try to maintain it over the years with the little money that we have and some of the volunteer work that was done last summer or the summer before by Chris and a couple of our other people. But we certainly don't have the $90,000 in our budget to really address the serious issues at the field house. We've gone before the town council in past years and made our case that the field house should be seriously considered for an upgrade. So they've had that information, but I don't know the answer to that question, if it's under the jurisdiction of the Board of Administration.
Yeah, I
I can
remember
try to
that.
find that out.
In terms of the backstop, was the repair of the backstop paid through municipal funds or school funds?
We paid that through school funds.
As far as the field house goes, I just remember that building being there. Old wooden building back in the mid to late 50s, I can remember.
Yes, it was.
My
Down
brother
in the
playing
50s.
football and whatnot, and the field house being there, waiting for him to come out, so. As far as the history goes, that's, you know, maybe, again, George Duchamp might know something about that. He was coaching back then, so I don't know. Well,
Well, back then, the municipal and the schools were more united as one, and they
yeah,
weren't so much a separate budget as one
Just-
budget.
I just remember it being there. I don't know when it went up or who did it.
Try to find out.
Next item, administrators' reports.
Motion to approve and accept the administrator's report with great thanks, barring any questions from committee members.
Any committee member have questions?
I just have a comment.
Make a second.
I just want to thank the high school for letting me be a part of their Mr. Bronco male beauty pageant event. It was very fun for me to be the mystery interviewer. I've never taken on that role before, so it was a great experience for me. It was a wonderful event, and special thanks to the high school student council for putting on the entire event. Very well done.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, motion to receive and file? Do we need a
Just
motion?
accept the administrator's reports.
I'll entertain a motion.
Motion. Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item, reports of school committee subcommittees, sick bank committee.
Mr. Chairman, the sick bank committee met on Thursday, March 3rd, and a total of 40 sick days were granted to 2 certified staff members. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Do I need a motion on that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
To accept the report.
Motion to accept sick bank committee report.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Item 11, correspondence communications. First item, naming of baseball diamond. Ms. Leclerc?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request to name the baseball diamond on Eccleston Fields after longtime coach Wilfred Ski Carter III.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing
Oh,
discussion?
no, I
Okay.
just would like to say, I think most of us knew Ski, and I did as well, not only working with him, but seeing him out in the community. And it is a fitting memorial to him. I did question if we could have included someone like George Duchamp, our living legend, but, and I appreciate very much the information that Peter Bertholet did acquire. And he also had some good ideas, how, some recognition, for George probably could be made in the future. So, again, I thank him and certainly approve this.
Thank you. Motion and a second. No further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The correspondence, communications, I would like to give a shout out to the girls, the girls cheerleaders, who, the Burrillville Cheer Program, who took home 4 trophies. Burrillville High School JV took home first. The Burrillville High School varsity took home first place medium division grand champs. And they also placed in the top 10 highest scores of the day. And they head into this week preparing for the biggest weekend of the season, and that's the state championship at the convention center. So they'll compete for the state title and the bid for the regional. So wish them luck with that. The other correspondence I have is a reminder that the 2016 Rhode Island Association of School Committees Legislative Workshop is this Saturday, the 12th, at 8:30 to 12 at the Providence Marriott.
I have one other here. I think we received it in our packet for the annual meeting of the NRIC, which is March 24th. It's Thursday. It's the 30th annual meeting. From 6 p.m. is the reception, 7 p.m. is the dinner, and it's at 12 acres, so it's not far away.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 12, new business. First item, approved 2016-2017 school year calendar.
So move.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I just have a quick question. In August, why is it that school begins on the 30th, which is a Tuesday, rather than the 29th, which is a Monday? I was just wondering if there's a specific reason, because there was the 2 PD days and then Friday.
It's a combination of professional days, high school graduation, and 180 days for the school kids and 171 days for the seniors. So it's a combination of all those things.
I was just curious.
Joshua?
Yeah, this was the first year that we did away pretty much with a good portion of the February vacation. How did the enrollment go through that time period? Did we get a good amount of enrollment? Was there lacking of enrollment or anything of that nature?
No, I did not receive any issues from the principals in terms of exorbitant absences, even with the staff, because we followed the superintendent's calendar, which is statewide.
Yeah.
There are a few communities that have a different calendar. Cumberland, for example, doesn't have a February vacation, they have a March vacation. But better than 90% of the state has this calendar, that's why we didn't have a lot of issues.
We didn't have any complaints or anything come in?
No, not to me, no.
Good, okay.
Julie, any complaints? No,
Any other
Went
comments?
well.
Great.
Any other comments? Have
Just
a
one.
motion? Oh,
Just
go ahead.
one. It doesn't, there's no January 1st date on this calendar.
Sunday, huh?
It's a
That's a s-
Sunday. This is a Monday
It's a
through
Sunday,
Friday.
right?
Oh, it's a Sunday, no wonder. Okay, sorry about that.
Well,
Right.
we'll pencil one in just in case. He wants to come to school.
The second is the observance of that holiday.
Any other further discussion? Hearing none, I have a motion, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next item, appointments to vacated school committee subcommittees. At this time, I'd like to appoint Ms. Sylvia St. Pierre to the school improvement team at Austin T. Levy. Do I need a motion for that?
No.
No, okay. That's the only appointment. Next item. Approve renewal of administrative assistant contracts.
Make a motion to approve or extend the contracts as presented to those individuals.
Second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approval to participate in Day 1 program.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we table this vote until the next meeting in April, pending receipt of some additional information.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Which information?
I had requested that I obtain a copy of the survey that the students would be receiving or asked to fill out in connection with the program, just so I could see, what the students were being asked. It seems to be somewhat of a sensitive nature, and my curiosity was what would those students be, what questions would they be answering, so. And matter of fact, I did get but I got it just as I got home this afternoon, so I haven't really had a chance to look at it. I could forward a copy to all of the committee members
Yes,
as
send it
well.
to me, I'll send it to the committee.
Okay, I will,
So they'll be prepared at the April meeting to take a vote.
okay.
And who, if you don't mind my asking, who are you requesting the survey from?
The survey came from, it was from Day 1. Our contact person there, I can tell you exactly, actually.
Sandra Malone?
Sandra Malone.
Yes.
Okay. So that's, we have a motion and a second, and a discussion. The only thing I have to say is you have to go through Dr. Pilata for that. We don't make personal phone calls or requests from these organizations without going through Dr. Pilata, because some of the things need to be copied to the other school committee members on that. Also needs to be copied to the admin and staff prior, so it's just a recommendation. We've been through it before, so I
Sure,
know. This is
fair
your
enough.
first time. We do everything through Dr. Pilata to make sure that it's all going to the right people.
Thank you.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item, approve homeschooling applications.
Motion to approve.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item, approve policy P2221, in-school observations, first reading.
Motion to approve a policy related to the district management P2221, in-school observation, first reading, and dispense with the reading.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion?
The question, is this in-school observation would be from people outside of the district or within the district?
What we experienced is parents sometimes would like to have their own psychologist or their own psychiatrist come in to observe a class. So we went to review the policy. There was no policy. So we developed a policy, and basically what this says is that it's limited in nature in terms of a half hour. There should be an administrator present with that particular individual, and there are guidelines when that professional comes into that particular class. It just relates to professionals. It doesn't relate to parents. The slippery slope is with the parents, because if a parent wanted to come in to observe their child, they have a right to do that. However, if they went into a special needs class, there's issues of confidentiality associated with that. So this just basically relates to professionals. And it gives us a lot of guidance and direction in terms of anyone requesting to come in to do an observation. Sometimes the parents don't agree with our psychological report or our analysis of something, and they want to have their own person come in to do that. Well, now we have guidance to allow that to happen.
Okay, how about when school committee members go and visit schools? Does this have anything to do with that?
No, you're not, no, you should not be going in to do an observation.
Well, no, just, but
But
would
you
you consider
certainly-
it an
you certainly
observation
can-
if you walk into the
No,
school?
you can visit
the
a classroom. No, observation specifically is zeroing in on one
Okay.
child and somebody taking notes or using a rubric identifying behaviors or characteristics or interactions. But you certainly have a right to walk into a classroom and say hi.
Well,
And
my impression when I was first reading this was that, oh, does that mean me? Because I did go into the classroom last week.
Don't take it personal.
no.
Okay.
No. No. Kim, you want to add anything to that? I mean, pretty much sums it up.
You summed it up. It's just for outside evaluators.
Okay.
And, you know, we've had situations recently that we've had to kind of come up with something, and one of the things, we've gone through the attorneys, and it's been vetted through them as well. And one of the things that's really important is having an administrator there with the observer, who also afterwards writes up a little summary of what happened in case there's some discrepancy.
Okay. So the
Okay.
principal would go in with the observer who's from,
Or the special ed director,
Okay.
or sometimes it might be the department head of special ed, but someone who can go in and do kind of their own, same observation.
very good idea.
Yeah, and this was put together by our attorney. He screened it with other communities that have similar policies. So it's been vetted pretty well.
Thank you.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Committee on Agenda Items. Hearing none. Item 14, pending issues. 5-year Facilities Assessment Building Committee.
Projects are going well. I was down at RIDE this afternoon. We received approval for schematic design and design development drawings for the cafeteria roof and the middle school roof section that was approved last fall.
Thank you.
School redistricting.
Ms. St. Pierre, you have a question?
Oh, are you ever thinking of making those roofs like pitched roofs, or are they going to continue to be flat roofs?
That actually came up in a town council meeting about 3 years ago. The cost to make them a pitched roof would be pretty cost prohibitive. The flat roofs, the roofs that we had on the schools that we've been replacing, the middle school actually is 25 years old. Those roofs, they live quite a long time beyond their useful life. The roof system that we're putting on today is a PVC roof system, and it's warranted for anywhere from 20 to 30 years.
So it doesn't seem like a long time as roofs go, but the average 3-top shingle on your home is a 20-year roof. And even if you were to put a pitched roof with architect shingles, that's a 35-year roof, right? So we're getting closer to the mark with this new, yeah, we're getting closer. Any other questions for Dave? Hearing none. Football field lighting,
Nothing to report at this time.
nothing to report. School redistricting. Dr. Love?
Yeah, I can report on that, Mr. Chairman. I sent out a memo to the committee that will be meeting on March 12th. At that meeting, we're going to review with the committee a transition plan, implementation plan to relocate the children. We think we've come up with some real good, viable options for parents. We intend to vote on that plan on March 12th, and our goal is to have 2 public meetings in April. And upon the conclusion of those 2 public meetings, come back to the school committee in May with the final plan for you to take a look at that and vote on it. And then move that plan to the town council in June, and implementation for the 17 school year.
Are we all allowed to go to that meeting, by the way? The public hearing?
Sure.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, matter of fact, we had 3 or 4 of us at the last meeting. It's
Just making sure.
schools, not school sanctioned. Ms. St. Pierre? Question?
How many students do you anticipate this affecting?
Not a lot. We went through that list a couple of times. I think there are about 45 students that's going to actually affect. So what we plan to do is meet with those parents separately. So it's more personalized in terms of the information and the transition that we're talking about. And we're going to give parents options also. I think we want to start with the transition with the current K, to start to transition them in 17, based on the new boundary line. So the two public hearings that we intend to have is, one will be definitely with those, just those 45 affected parents with the move in the line, and then one general meeting for both school districts. So we're gonna try to personalize it as best we can, so we can answer as many questions as we can. I know parents might be a little apprehensive about it, but there are built-in options for parents, particularly where there's siblings involved or special programs involved. We've made accommodations for all of that.
And so it's going to be a gradual implementation, or?
Yeah, it's gonna be gradual. We're gonna start with the Ks. We wanna put the kids into those schools right from the very beginning. We don't wanna move anybody from one school to the next, and I don't think we've done that in our plan. So everybody who's currently there will stay there, correct? We're not gonna pick somebody up from Stair Farm and move them to Callahan in 2017. Kids that are there will stay there, and we'll start to transition the Ks off into the new
Ks or
boundary
first grade?
lines.
First grade? Oh, Ks.
Well, we'll start with the K group, who become first grades into
This
this.
year's K group?
That's why it's 17. I'm saying Ks, because that's the 17 group. That's where the implementation will take place.
The current K will be the 2017, but the current first graders whose younger siblings will be going to Callahan will have the option to start at Callahan in the coming fall, assuming that everything that we come up with gets approved by the committee, then approved by the school committee and town council.
That normally would go to Stair Farm, so they have the option of starting at Callahan and finishing at Callahan.
And that's the 45 students on the short term. Obviously, it really addresses those students which are going to enter the school system in the next decade. As construction boom begins again and housing developments are built, we really get to address that. But for the 45 now, they're going to be affected right now, yeah, make sure it's a slow entry, slow transition. Any other questions on that? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I forgot to ask if anybody was opposed. Right, this is your copy.